I'm pretty sure I'm not the only person who's ever looked at somebody and said, or questioned, if you will, he or she gets paid to do that? It seems like a kind of an odd thing to talk about, but this is what we're going to talk about this morning. The subject of the conversation is going to be gainful employment. Hello and welcome to the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I'm your host, I'm Kurt, and I'm glad to have you aboard this morning. If you're coming aboard on YouTube, on Rumble, or on the podcast, thanks for coming aboard. Remember that you can get the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify, if nowhere else. Might be a little hard to find me. You can use the Daily Summation or Kurt's Religion and Politics, various places to do that in all likelihood. As I've said, I think today is, I may not have, today is Sunday the 22nd of November of 2020, and I'm glad to have you aboard. And again, the subject this morning is gainful employment. You start asking yourself some questions, and one of the questions that you start asking yourself is, first of all, what the heck is gainful, right? And what gainful is something that gives somebody or society, whatever, gain, right? And it's a question, it's an important question, which you mean by that. You mean the given individual, or do you mean society? I also want to point out something that I did not put in my notes. One thing that in my mind separates people who are gainfully employed from people who are not is whether or not the employment that they are involved in is legal, moral, and ethical. Moral being probably the most important of the three to me, ethical being next most important, and legal being pretty important as well. As a rule, though, as I've said before, I don't think you can necessarily count on having all three. So your character and how you respond to your needing employment is pretty important. And the fact that you're willing to do things that are illegal, immoral, or unethical in order to be, quote, employed, that's really problematic to me. But that having been said, here's the thing. Other than that, I just don't see any reason to judge people on the basis of their employment, right? When a person is employed, it doesn't matter if they're sweeping streets. It doesn't matter if they're stocking shelves. It doesn't matter if they're working fast food. It doesn't matter if they're doctors. It doesn't matter if they're lawyers. It doesn't matter, if they're some sort of other professional. The point is that they're trying to do the right thing and have a job as opposed to sitting on their duff at home collecting money when they could be out working, which brings up another good point, right? There are people who either can't or at least feel like they can't work. I knew a guy who walked on a walker and it was very hard for him to get to a job. That guy worked. I knew another guy who was in a wheelchair. That guy was a lawyer. He's since passed, but he was a lawyer. He worked as a lawyer, okay? Know another guy who had various obvious mental issues, and I don't mean in terms of, schizophrenia or anything like that. I mean in terms of he just didn't have the mental capacity that the average person would have. He had a lower IQ or whatever you want to say. For a long time, he didn't work. That guy didn't work. In the course of time, with a little bit of gentle discussion and a little bit of gentle persuasion, he decided that it was a good thing for him to work. And the thing of it is, he always had the inclination to be a working person. He just lacked the belief that he could do it. And he ended up doing okay for himself. Not great, but okay. I knew another guy who had physical health issues that made it so that he felt like he couldn't work. And it literally, again, with that guy, it was just a matter of being kind to him and helping him out when he was in need. And ultimately, he became a working guy like everyone else, even though that was a hard thing for him to do. I'll say it again, a lot of these guys, a couple of these guys were more inclined to get jobs that paid them a little better and did well for them. But the point is, the value of a job is not based on how much you're getting paid per se. Obviously, there's the argument that says you can buy more and so forth when you work in particular jobs. But how important is a job like mail carrier? How important is a job like a street sweeper, or a job like, janitor, somebody who cleans toilets for a living, or whatever they happen to do, right? How important are those jobs? Well, you tell me, but I certainly would make the argument that those are some pretty doggone important jobs, right? And you sort of question whether or not something like software developer is all that important until you see that people are using the output that folks like me who do software development create on an ongoing basis, and then you realize maybe that's kind of important as well. Looking at my notes here to see what I haven't discussed. One of the important things is that when you do a particular job, when you choose a particular career path, specifically, people have to be willing to pay you to do whatever it is that you're doing, right? I don't do theater particularly. I'm not a person who goes to the theater. These days it would be kind of hard to do anyway, but I'm not a person who does that. I don't buy paintings typically. That's not something I do. Does that mean there's no value in those things? No, it doesn't. But I will tell you this, just like with being a professional basketball player, it's a lovely idea, but if it's your only idea, the chances are pretty good you're not going to survive off of it. I'm not saying that to be mean. I'm not saying it to be rude. I'm saying it because, frankly, it's true. You're just not likely to survive off of that. There are those people who give it their all and make it into professional basketball or football or whatever, right? There are those who are amazingly good as artists and make it into the ranks of those who are being paid well for what they do in that regard. But the thing is, the question you have to ask yourself is, are people willing to pay for me to do X or Y, right? Are they willing to pay me for that? Be an artist, be a professional basketball player, be a basketball player at all, right? Be a video gamer, right? There are people who get paid for that. There are people who get paid for various things like that you look at and you go, wow, that person actually gets paid for that. And I want to point out that for certain of these things, there's a tendency to assume that what will help is for me to get an education in this thing. And lovely idea, right? Obviously, there are things for which you have to get an education to really be useful in that particular pursuit. You can do it without, potentially, though in certain pursuits they make it basically illegal for you to try and do so without. Example would be lawyer, doctor, etc., right? You can giving medical advice and so forth, maybe not something you probably ought to do if you don't have the education. And I'm not saying I agree with that. I'm saying at this point, that's how the chips fall, right? So that's important. I recognize that being employed, getting a job can be hard, and keeping a job can be hard. Look, I've been in situations where I didn't have a job, and I'll just tell you that if you are on somebody's case who doesn't have a job, my answer to you is lay off in general. Not always. There are certain instances where they need somebody to prod them to get them going. But look, I don't know about anybody else, but when I'm unemployed, I feel like a failure. I feel like I've failed, and I'll be the first to say it. And by the way, that brings me to self-employment, which I think can be a good thing so long as you're actually making enough money to survive. You have to be realistic about what you're doing. Me doing these videos, this is an example of self-employment videos, podcasts, blog writing. But here's the thing. I'm not making enough money out of that to survive, right? I think I have all the skills I need, and I think that that's an important thing regardless whatever job you're doing. But I'm not making enough to survive. So I have to be realistic and say I've got to do a 9 to 5 at this point to support my habit of doing videos, of doing blog posts, of doing podcasts, right? That's how I have to look at that at this point in time. I love doing the videos, and I love podcasting, and I love doing blog articles, but I have to be realistic and understand that until I come to the place where that's able to support me, where people are able to support me, it just doesn't happen. Again, I might see or may not see the value of a given job, but working in a job that's legal, moral, and ethical wherever you can, that's, to me, an important part of life. Okay, I'm running out of time here, obviously, getting up on my time limit. So let me wish you a good day. let me say that this is as the beginning of the week is a day to wish you a good week to come as well. I hope that you're doing well. I hope that everything is good for you and that you're not suffering horribly in health regards and similar things. Tomorrow will be Monday, the 23rd of November of 2020, as I've said today being the 22nd. And hopefully we'll see you again then. It's going to depend on whether or not my day-to-day gets in the way of me being able to actually do a video, which is entirely possible. In any case, I definitely hope that you're having a good day, and hopefully we will see you again tomorrow. The speaker on this edition of the Daily Summation is Kurt Schubert. This video is recorded on Sunday, the 22nd of November, 2020. The Daily Summation is created for Kurt's Religion and Politics. Thanks for checking out this video. Remember that you can like it on YouTube and you can give it a rumble on Rumble if you want to do that. I have channels on both YouTube and Rumble. They are the Kurt's Religion and Politics channels. You can subscribe to either one of those if you want to do so. Remember, if you subscribe on YouTube, you probably want to click the notification bell in order to be notified of new content. If you want to see more from me, you can check me out on my blog. That's blogs.kpschubert.com, blogs.kpschubert.com. You can also see my Facebook page. That is Kurt's Religion and Politics on Facebook. You can check out my Twitter, Parler, and Minds.com accounts. My handle on all three of those is at kpschubert. That's at kpschubert. You can check out my podcast. The podcast is at podcasts.kpschubert.com. That's podcast.kpschubert.com. And finally, you can check me out on Patreon. And if you want to support me, that's probably one of the better places that you can do that. I am Kurt's Religion and Politics there. Thanks again for checking out this video, and hopefully we will see you again tomorrow.